Pyro's Axtinguisher used to be known as one of the best melee weapons in the entire game, not just in Pyro's arsenal, but in general. To put it blatantly, it was pretty overpowered. Nowadays, it's not really brought up at all. Not a lot of people even really think about it, even if you're a Pyro main, which I personally think is a bit unfortunate because I still think it's a really solid weapon. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over the Axtinguisher's history, its nerfs, buffs, etc., and why I personally think A, it's not used as much anymore, and B, why I think that it's actually a pretty solid weapon in Pyro's arsenal. The Axtinguisher was added for the Pyro update released June 19, 2008. This same update added the backburner, the flare gun, and the ability to air blast. Just to put in perspective how old the Axtinguisher is. When it first released, its stats included 100% critical hit versus burning players, negative 50% damage versus non-burning players, and of course, no random critical hits on non-burning players. As you can imagine, the ability to get a 100% critical hit on any burning player, as the class who can burn players, was pretty powerful. Combined with the later release, Degreaser, comboing the two together with the flare gun quickly became the meta for Pyros, which became known as Combo Pyros. 6 years after its release, a day before its birthday, the Axtinguisher received a change. A pretty major one at that. Instead of the simple 100% critical hit on burning players stat, it now became 100% critical hits on burning players from behind. They were now mini crit from the front, which made its use as a flanking tool more apparent and the weapon far more situational. This change had mixed reviews from Pyro players, but was viewed as a positive change to players who viewed the Axtinguisher as being one of the most overpowered weapons in the game. The reputation of the Axtinguisher was now lessened. However, this change was nothing compared to the murder of the weapon that will come with Tough Break update. Released December 17th, 2015, the Tough Break update destroyed the Axtinguisher and the changes it made. The newly released stats for the Axtinguisher read as follows: 100% critical hits against burning players, minus 33% damage penalty, 20% slower attack speed, and the addition that destroyed this weapon for a very long time, a 75% slower deploy speed, meaning you could no longer combo the weapon. Gone were the days of the combo Pyros, and in turn this weapon's usefulness in comparison to other Pyro melees. Three long years passed. The Axtinguisher was now a forgotten weapon, quickly replaced by the Power Jack as the new Pyro melee meta. The weapon was now viewed as a joke, and if you weren't using the Power Jack, you were too.
Crit on a burning player on any part of their body, i.e. front or back, but because they've reduced the base damage, that's no longer a 195 crit, which would let you take out most classes in one. It's now only a 131 damage crit, which is only letting you take out 3 of the lowest health classes, not including any health buffs they would have, in one hit. And on top of that, it's got a slower switch to time. And on top of that, again, it's got a slower attack speed. And both of these, or at least the first one, completely sort of contradicts the whole point of this weapon. The whole point of this weapon is a combo weapon. You're meant to light a person on fire and then use this to kill them. But the fact that it takes a terrific amount longer to actually get to this weapon than any other melee, then you can't really pull off that combo with any sort of consistency.
The weapon not being buffed during the Jungle Inferno update crushed any hope of the weapon being useful to most Pyro mains. But then, on March 28, 2018, the weapon was revived. The changelogs read as follow: the slow deploy time, which is there to help pay for the burst damage this weapon is capable of, hasn't been very well received, and we agree that it feels awkward. The design goal of this pass is to embrace the concept of a finishing move weapon, which requires planning, timing, and introduces opportunity for combo gameplay. The new design attacks mini crit and then extinguish burning targets. Receives a damage bonus based on the remaining duration of afterburn. Added sketch X quest. Killing blows on burning players grant a speed boost. Base damage reduced by 33%. Holster speed 35% slower. And no random critical hits. Now, outside of the obvious, adding a core feature in memory of a deceased YouTuber who actually didn't die, the change logs were actually pretty decent. And that's where we're currently at right now. This is what the current stats are for the Axtinguisher. I personally think that at the current moment it's pretty solid. I don't think that it's really in nearly as bad of a state as it previously was, and I would even argue that it's probably the best it's been since the update before Tough Break. Obviously the mini crits are way less impactful than actual crits, but I think that's a lot more balanced because being able to one-tap pretty much any class was kind of ridiculous. I feel like the people who were complaining about it being overpowered kind of had a point. But yeah, so that's the update history for all of that, and let's move on to the next segment. At the current moment, the Axtinguisher does 44 damage to non-burning players, and anywhere from 86 to 167 while they're on fire with that mini crit damage. With the weapon being a melee, you of course have to get up close and personal with your enemy, making items such as the thermal thruster or detonator pretty useful in combination with this weapon due to the mobility that they provide. However, the most popular weapon pairing with this, of course, is the Degreaser and Flare Gun, the classic combo Pyro. Due to the Axtinguisher's many buffs and nerfs, mostly nerfs, the general consensus of this weapon has varied over time, from one of the most overpowered weapons, one of the worst, now one of the most forgotten. The weapon isn't really used all that much anymore. More likely, in my experience anyways, to see a power jack or a back scratcher out in the wild, which says a lot. I mean, the Axtinguisher is extremely dangerous with the damage you can output in a single swing. You'll be able to one-shot most low to medium health classes, two-shot soldiers demos, or even 3 to 4 hits to kill a fully healed heavy. With its newly implemented speed boost with its most recent change, it's easier than ever to get combo kills. So that kind of leads to the question, why is it barely used anymore? And I think the main reason why it's not used anymore is because of its competition. Like, you've got to remember, Pyro's probably got the best melee options in the entire game. You've got the power jack, which can increase your speed. You've got the back scratcher, which not only does more damage, but can also drop you health. You've got the third degree, which is a direct upgrade to stock. And I mean, there's a lot of competition that the Axtinguisher gets, and in terms of other weapons, everything else just kind of overshadows it, which I think is a shame because the Axtinguisher is a really useful tool, and it's very good in terms of actual just raw damage output. Like, if you've got to get rid of like a scout or a medic really quickly, like if medic's about to get Uber, you can light this guy up for like a second, pull out the Axtinguisher, and then one tap him. I've had that happen to me before. But again, after Axtinguisher got nerfed and the power jack kind of became the meta, there was really no reason to go back to the Axtinguisher. And I feel like in the long run, that really damaged its reputation as a whole, and now it's just kind of like not a lot of people really pay attention to it. It may not shock you that I think this weapon is really underrated. I don't think it's trash at all. It's probably one of, I'd say it's tied with the power jack in terms of the best pyro melee weapons. The main reason why I wanted to do a video on this though was nostalgia. I used to watch the guy who was mentioned before, Sketchek, all the time. I used to watch his pyro montages where he'd do some crazy detonator jump like straight into enemies. He'd let them all on fire, then like wipe them all out with an Axtinguisher. And it's kind of disappointing now to see how little people really recognize this weapon. I recently, while I was editing this video, saw Uncle Dane's most recent upload where he talks about the Axtinguisher, which I thought was pretty funny since I was already working on this video. And the way he described it was instant gratification or something like that, where you light somebody on fire and you get that mini crit. It's an instant kill, and you just get addicted to that and just trying to get that over and over and over again. And I really thought that was a good way to explain the weapon. Why I personally think I use it so much is it's just fun. It spices things up a bit to take that high risk, high reward of taking out your melee weapon and hoping that you don't somehow get you don't miss it or it doesn't register or something like that. But yeah, that's the conclusion. This video took me a while to make compared to my other ones. Usually it'd take me like 2 days. Those are unboxings, but this one took me 3 weeks. So I'd really appreciate it if you like and subscribed. I might do some more weapon reviews like this if this video does well. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys sticking all the way down here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully. Maybe.